Today we are going to get started on our color wheel. So we're going to walk through how to sketch this out first and those steps that go along with that. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to get our square piece of paper. This is a 12 by 12 inch piece of paper that's pre-cut for you all, and you're going to get one of these circle tracers. Okay, so I'm just going to set this down here kind of in the center roughly of my paper. Okay, and I'm just going to lightly trace around it. So whenever I lightly trace, I always hold by the end of my pencil like this. And I'm just going to bring this around here. Again, super lightly, just like that. Okay, so it's very, very light, so you can't see a super obvious or super dark circle there. Now I'm going to work on dividing this up. The way that I do this is I like to divide it into bigger shapes first and then into smaller shapes. Okay, so the first thing that I need to keep in mind is that I need to have 12 sections that are relatively close in size. Okay, they don't have to be exactly perfect, but you do want to have it as close as possible so that it looks good and so that you have enough space to do everything in. Okay, so usually what I do is I kind of imagine about where the middle of my circle is, roughly, and I'm going to put my ruler across the middle, okay? And I'm just going to draw a straight line lightly down here. Now remember, when you're using a ruler, you want to press down really hard with your non-dominant hand. So my non-dominant hand is my left hand, and then my dominant hand is my writing hand, which is my right hand. And again, I hold the pencil by the end of it close to the eraser so that whenever I just drag it across here, it's very light, but I still get my line in there. Okay. One of the other things that you can also look at too, sometimes if you want to measure this section, right? This is a little bit less than 10. So I know my halfway point is going to be a little less than 5. So maybe it's going to be roughly around here. So, okay, which I think looks about right. So I've divided my circle into half. I'm going to go half again. And just to make it easy on me, I'm going to turn my paper. And I am going to, again, press down really hard with my fingers spread apart here. And I have my pencil. I'm just going straight across here, nice and light. Okay, so now I have 4 sections, but I need to turn this into 12 sections total. Okay, the easiest way to do that, if I already have 4, that means that each of these needs to have 3 sections in it. Okay, so if I am doing one section, I'll be doing the opposite section at the same time. The way that I like to do this is I kind of like to estimate about what 1/3 of this section looks like here. Okay, so for this area right here, I kind of imagine that maybe 1/3 is right about here. So, and then the second third is maybe right around there. Okay, those I think look pretty even. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over on this section. Okay, and so I'm going to kind of guesstimate maybe 1/3 is, whoops, roughly about here, and then maybe the other third is maybe around here. Okay, these are just guidelines to help me out. I can always adjust these if they don't work out. Okay, I'm going to take this first dash that I have here, and it's going to go across and meet this dash closer here. Okay, so I'm looking at this line going across here. This little dash is closer to this line, and it's going to go with this dash that's closer to this line here. Okay, so I'm going to line this up, and I want to, the main thing is I want to make sure that it goes through the center of my circle. And mine currently does not. Okay, so if we look a little bit closer here, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit for you guys. If you look a little bit closer, it does not go through that middle point. Okay, so I need to adjust either one or both of these. Okay, so the first thing that I think I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of shift this over a little bit at a time. And I'm going to find a point that looks like it's a little bit closer. So I'm lining it up over here. I'm making sure it goes through the exact middle here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and sketch this line out. So again, I'm spreading my non-dominant hand. This hand over here is going to just drag, whoops, just drag the pencil across here. And then the nice thing is it's so light that if I did mess up and I hate it, I can always adjust it later. So I think that looks pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and do this other line over here to make sure that it looks pretty good. And then if I end up not liking this first line that I drew, this first diagonal line, I can always change it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this one here. I'm going to make sure it goes through the middle. And this looks pretty close, actually. Sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't. Okay, but the main thing is that it goes through the very, very center. Okay, so I'm going to draw this here. Just like that. Okay, now I feel like these sections look pretty close to being about the same size, so I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty content. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this one over here, but I want to show you what not to do. Okay, so if I have, so I'm going to do the same steps again. I'm going to divide into thirds, maybe here and here. I'm going to turn my paper and do the same thing. So maybe this one is a third, maybe here and here. Okay, now what I don't want to have happen is when I'm dividing this up, is I don't want to have a line that goes through. And do you see right here how it cuts off? It doesn't go through the very center. I want to make sure that it's going through the very center. Okay, so if you accidentally do that, make sure that you erase it and try again. Okay, so I've erased that. I'm going to do one more here. Let's try that again. So again, I can always just kind of adjust a little bit to make sure it's going through the very center. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and draw this line across here very lightly. Again, if I hate it, I can easily erase it. And I'm going to do my second line right over here. So let's say right about here, I think. And remember those little dashes that you make on the edge of the circle are just to kind of give you a frame of reference, right? So you know you're relatively close. Okay, so I feel like these look all pretty even. They're definitely not exactly even, but they all look pretty decent. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have 12. And so I can do this two different ways. And both of these ways are really helpful, and you might try doing both of them. The first thing is that I'm going to number all of them, right? So I have 1, 2, and I'm writing this down because it's a lot easier to count later on, because if you just count here, I always forget which one I started on. 3, 4. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. I have 12, so it's kind of like a clock. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and label out the colors. And when I do this, I always like to just put the first letter or two of that color name. Okay, so for example, and you can start wherever. I am going to start with yellow. I don't know why I always start with yellow, but I do. So probably because it's my favorite color, but I'm just going to put a Y. Okay, now the next color that's going to come in here is going to be either yellow, green, or yellow, orange. I'm going to go with yellow, orange. So I have Y-O, yo, and then I have O for orange, R-O for red, orange, and then I have R for red. Then I start turning into red, violet. So that's going to be R-V. Then I'm going to have just a V, a B-V. So violet, blue, blue, violet. And then I have just blue, B. And then I'm going to have BG for blue, green. I'll have green. And then I will have YG right up here next to my yellow. Okay. And again, you can look at the color wheel in class as you're going through and writing these down. But it's really good to have these labeled. Okay. So this is the first step. It might seem like it's a little bit challenging, but if you divide it into the fourths first and then divide each space into 3, it's so much easier, I think, to do that. And then you're going to start designing. So you're going to start drawing your picture in this space here. And of course, you want to make sure that you have enough design that you can have 4 sections in each slice, each color slice. Because remember, you have to have 4 things, right? So you have to have your hue, your complementary color, your tint, and your shade. Okay, so make sure your design has all of those in there. It can be a design where each slice is different, right? It can be a design where each slice looks the same, Or it can be just kind of like a straightforward picture on here, but then you have enough details that you have those sections for each color. Okay, so this is the very first step, and I hope that you were able to do this really, really easily.